All right, thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Abhijit Bhattacharya. It's great to be here today at FinDEVr New York 2017. And I lead the open banking engineering team at Citi. And I want to talk to you today about OAuth tokenization and rapid prototyping using Citi's APIs. So what is open banking? Now, if I asked you guys what open banking was, I'm sure I'd get quite a few different responses. It's almost become a buzzword, an industry buzzword by now. What open banking means to us at Citi is that by externalizing Citi APIs and providing access to Citi financial systems, we are creating the opportunity to accelerate the development of global business partnerships. We want to work with our business partners to create compelling and useful applications for their customers who have Citi accounts, and then create a seamless integration between those applications and our systems through using Citi APIs. OK, so right now, our APIs are supported in 8 different countries. When we launched our developer hub back at the Singapore Fintech Fest in November, we were supported by 3 countries. We had Singapore, Australia, and the US. And in the intervening months, we've added 5 more countries, and more on the way. We're going to expand into Latin America later on in 2017. OK, so our APIs are categorized in 7 different categories. So the 6 categories you see on the right cover things like accessing your account information, accessing your bank information, transferring money from one account to another account, and using the thank you points that you earn when you use your Citi credit cards and spending them with our partner retailers for goods and services on their websites. Those 6 categories of APIs rest on a security framework that we call Authorize. So Authorize is really consisting of mainly OAuth 2.0. So how many of you guys know what OAuth is or are somewhat familiar with it? OK, quite a few of you. So OAuth 2.0, it's an industry standard. It's used by companies such as Google and Facebook, Amazon. It's becoming a banking industry standard as well. And primarily, it provides 4 different types of credential grants. There's the client credential grant, there's the username and password credential grant, there's the auth code grant, and there's the implicit grant. So Citi supports the first 3 types of grants. We don't support the implicit grant. There are some concerns around its usability and some security issues as well. So we support the first 3 types. The one that we'd like for you to use is the auth code type of grant, or as we call it, 3-legged OAuth. So the great benefit of 3-legged OAuth is that the customer credentials are not stored by you as developers. Rather, what happens is during the authorization flow, you generate what's called a redirect URI in the developer hub, and I'll show you how to do that in a little bit. And so during the authorization flow, when you specify the auth code grant, you go to a Citi website where a user enters his or her authentication credentials, and then once you are successfully authenticated, we will redirect you back to the redirect URI, and you can continue on with the program flow. So before we go any further, a little bit about my life. I started at Citi back in June of last year. And so right now, I'm living in a small studio apartment in Midtown Manhattan on the east side. And it's quite an expensive place. I still have a home. I used to live for many years in Silicon Valley. And I know a lot of you are from there. So we have a home in San Carlos in California. And so when I talked to my wife about moving her and our daughter over to New York, we decided that since she was a teacher and my daughter is finishing up her 2nd grade, that they would wait until this summer and finish out the school year and come join me. So as you can imagine, those of you who own homes in the Bay Area, very expensive mortgage there, paying a lot in rent here. So this is creating a lot of pressure on my budget. And let's be honest, I also have some expensive hobbies. So I like racing cars. I like high-end audio gear. I have not one, but two headphone amplifiers. And you guys know what headphone amplifiers are? OK. Oh, the few, the proud. All right, like the Marines. OK, great. So it's a very magical world, but I won't go into that. But you'll probably join my wife in thinking that my money's kind of going down the drain here. So I really need something to control my spending habits. So as I was thinking about this, I was thinking, hey, wouldn't it be great if I had an application that tracked my budget on a weekly basis and told me if I was on budget, if I was approaching my budget limits, if I was in danger of going over, and then giving me back the responses in a very simple and easy-to-use format, just like a traffic light, red, yellow, and green. So what I came up with is a ultra-personalized financial spending app. It's called Can I Spend? And oh, not coincidentally, it also uses the authorize and the accounts categories of APIs that Citi supports. So let's switch over to our iPhone here. No. Oh, here we go. All right. OK. Can I spend? I busted my iPhone yesterday, so this might be causing me some problems. But anyways, all right, so let me go ahead and go on in. And before I go any further, I'd just like to point out that I talked about using the authorize APIs and the account APIs. The authorize is actually under the hood. It's using the client credential grant, so it's not using three-legged OAuth, so there are no user interface elements here. What I want to do is to first find out, am I on budget today? OK, fantastic. It looks like I am. And so since I'm on budget, I know that I normally spend in 3 different categories: restaurant, bars, and audio gear. The first thing I want to find out is, can I buy that third headphone amplifier? OK, no, out of the question. All right, well, they are quite expensive. Those of you who have investigated them know just how expensive they are. So nothing until next year. That's fine. One of the great things about the Citi APIs is once you start looking into the accounts, we show you the categories. Here, I just have restaurant, bar, and audio gear because that's what I'm interested in. You have the recent transactions. You have the last 7 days of transactions. And let's see. I'm going to go into the bar category and say, OK, after FinDEVr tonight, I think I want to spend, I don't know, maybe buy a couple drinks for me, maybe for my friends too. OK, nope. Looks like I cannot spend $50 tonight. That's going to bum me out a little bit. But aha, that's because I've already spent $128 of my $150 for the week. So how many times have I been to the bar this week? Am I sure? Yes, mother, I think I'm sure. All right, so, OK. Well, that's a lot of times, probably too many to count. But you know what? There might be something a little bit left over in the tank. So let's go back here. Let's put in $13. OK, so what this is telling me is that I'm approaching my budget limit. So what I've done is I've actually hard-coded a value where if I'm within $20 of my budget limit, then it's going to show me a warning. And so finally, can I spend $5? All right. OK. Fantastic. I can spend $5. Looks like it might be a PBR night tonight, but that's OK. All right. So this is a very simple app that I created. It really only took a few hours to create the underlying frameworks and hook it up to Citi's APIs. Obviously, it took a little bit longer to generate the images and whatnot. But I just wanted to show this to you because this is absolutely something that you can create in a very short amount of time. So can we switch back? OK. So how did I build this app? So the first thing I did is I went to the developer hub. the Citi Developer Hub, which is at developer.citi.com. And I signed up for an account. So I put in my first name, my last name, my organization, and then an email address. And then once I click submit, I will get an email back that has an activation link. And if I click on the activation link, it'll take me to another web page where I can put in a unique username and a password. So once I'm done with that, I am off and running. So this is a logged in experience. The first thing I'm going to do, and what you will do, is to go into My Applications tab. The My Applications tab is where you can put in as many applications that you want to create. You can generate an icon for them. I'm not sure if you can see this, but there's a place there for a redirect URI. And that redirect URI is if you're going to be supporting three-legged OAuth. I'm only using the client credential grant, so that is empty here. The other thing I'd like to point out is that for each application, you will generate a client ID and a client secret. And it's the combination of the client ID and client secret that generates what's called an access token. So when I go back out, the next thing I'll do is I will go in to the API catalog. And there, I'll go into the authorized page. Now, on the left-hand side, you see the types of credential grants that we support. One of the great things about the Citi Developer Hub is that you don't actually need to even create an application to try out each of the APIs, because we support the ability for every single API to try out those APIs directly from within the website so you can get a feel for how they work. So I put in my client ID, my client secret. There's some preset usernames and passwords. And then I put all of that in. And then I get what's called an access token. So access token is a limited lifetime token. Right now, it's set to 60 minutes. And within that 60-minute period, you can go ahead and try out and use all of the APIs. This will be connecting directly to a Citi backend system. It's a virtualized backend. It's not touching any production data. So have at it. We really want you guys to use this. Another great thing about our Developer Hub is that although these are REST APIs, you can use whatever ID and environment that you want, we actually provide sample code for 7 different languages, Ruby, Python, PHP, Java, Node, Swift, curl, if you guys like the command line. So all you have to do is just copy and paste the sample code and put it into your own IDE, and then you're off and running. So once I have my access token, as I said, I can use any one of the APIs that I want. Here, what I did for my app is I used the Accounts API. So I send over the access token, and then I get a response back. And the response comes back in a JSON format, so it's very standard. And the areas that I've highlighted here are ones that I showed in my UI, and ones that you would probably show as well, things like transaction category, transaction type, and the transaction number or the amounts themselves. And then I just simply copy and pasted, as I mentioned earlier, put it into my ID. In this case, it's Xcode, because this is a iOS app. And it's very straightforward. I would like to point out that these Hue bulbs, they were created by Philips. They have their own SDK. Those are also based on REST APIs. Very easy to have them light up in whatever colors that you like. And also, we are using Alamo Fire, which highly recommended. It's found on GitHub. These are just a set of networking libraries that make connections, networks, HTTP, HTTPS calls, very simple and straightforward. Also supports security aspects like certificate pinning. So check that out. And finally, now it's your turn. So I hope I've given you a flavor of what the developer has. I hope that's inspired you to at least check it out and sign up and register. Create your own applications. We actually have a Contact Us page in the Developer Hub where you can contact us, ask us any questions that you like, and we'll be happy to respond to you. And please go out to developer.citi.com. We'll be outside here at the booth in the exhibition hall. Or when you go back to your home or hotel, please check this site out and let us know what you think about it. So thank you very much. OK, questions? OK, the first question is, do you think there will be industry-wide standards? So I'm old enough to remember the whole VHS versus beta thing that was going on, I don't know, 25 years ago or so. I think we're still kind of in that stage with industry-wide standards. There are standards in Europe, for example. They're coalescing around what's called PSD2. In the US, there are also some other standards, like durable data standards. What we do at Citi is we use internally what's called a global consumer information model. And that model aligns very well with how our applications and microservices are architected. And we have prioritized externalizing those and onboarding partners. We are on communications and boards of some of these other standards bodies, and we do keep in touch with them. So although this is proprietary to Citi right now, once the entire financial and banking industry coalesces around an industry standard, we will happily join that and provide access via that path. What are the advantages of integrating with an individual bank, such as Citi, than with a multi-bank aggregator, Plaid, Yodlee, or Finicity? OK, so one thing that many of you all are perhaps aware, maybe perhaps not aware, is that the majority of those aggregators right now use what's called screen scraping. So what that means is that they actually overload the Citibank online protocol, and they get customer information directly through that mechanism. We're actually in conversations with these different aggregators to move them over to the APIs. One great benefit of doing that is then the customer credentials are not stored by the aggregators because they're going to be using three-legged OAuth, and it also will greatly reduce the network traffic that we have. So your applications will, at that time, be using those same APIs. So I don't think I would differentiate these applications going directly to Citi versus the aggregators because they're going to be using those same APIs anyways. Are the Citi APIs targeted to integrators, or can end users with development experience use the APIs to access manage their own accounts with Citi? OK, so this is a good question. The APIs that I've showed you right now are in what's called a sandbox environment. So what that means is that the backend systems are virtualized. The virtualization process is different whether the APIs are in Asia, for example, or versus the US. But basically, these are systems that do not have a direct connection to the actual runtime production systems that Citi has. And so this whole idea of the developer hub and the sandbox is meant as an experimentation platform. We are thinking maybe at one time in the future, especially since we just launched this in November of last year, that we want to soak this a little bit, have a few more months spent on this experience at least, and then we can make a decision about whether to go live with this and actually have application users access the Citi production environment directly. There are a lot of considerations around that, from regulatory to just basic things like load and network traffic, CPU, and network latency and CPU utilization, et cetera. So it's something we're thinking about. It's not something that we're doing now. What is your criteria to make Developer Hub accessible to developers? I guess my only criterion would be that we don't really have any. We want every single developer to use the Developer Hub. We hope it's accessible. It's at developer.citi.com. So please sign up and start using our APIs. Now, I did mention my previous comment about a sandbox versus a production environment. I would like to note that all of the APIs that are available in the sandbox are actually in production. That's how we're publishing our APIs going forward. So you can be sure that, for the partners where we will go live, and we have several partners already, and there are more coming online, that they're going to be trying out their APIs first in the sandbox, and then the work needed to go into production is actually relatively little. OK, now I think I am really out of time. So thank you very much. Good questions. And I hope you enjoyed the presentation.